Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the latest mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. It's good to be with you here on this Saturday morning, February 21st. We are broadcasting, as we always do, from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Just about 28 minutes remaining on the clock before the planned launch of a Falcon 9 rocket from Vandenberg out on the west coast. SpaceX is currently fueling the vehicle in anticipation of a liftoff at the time you see here on your screen. 1:04 a.m. Pacific, 4:04 a.m. Eastern, 9:04 UTC for our friends joining around the world. Our Spacelight Now editor, Stephen Young, is running the technical operations of the broadcast today. Also want to thank one of our channel members for helping us out this morning, Cumulus Granatus, who's able to answer folks' questions in the chat as we go throughout the coverage. We'll be getting views of the Falcon 9 rocket from SpaceX within the final few minutes of the count. Before we see that rocket live, let's bring things a little bit closer to where we're broadcasting here in Florida. Check out things over at Launch Complex 39B, where, of course, the Space Launch System rocket is situated atop the mobile launcher. For folks who have popped over to Artemis Live recently, you may have seen some activity out at the pad, even in these early morning hours, following what was viewed as largely a successful wet dress rehearsal on, let's see, this was Thursday when that wrapped up, right? Yes. Wrapped up on Thursday. We heard from NASA leadership Friday morning during an 11 a.m. Eastern news conference about this tanking test. And while a number of items are still out ahead of the agency, NASA is targeting a no earlier than launch date of March 6th to fly 4 crew members around the moon and back. Those astronauts have entered into their quarantine period yesterday evening over at the Johnson Space Center and will be arriving here in Florida in the final days before planned launch, which is just about 2 weeks from now, if things remain on track. Still a number of items out ahead of NASA, including a thorough multi-day flight readiness review, as well as some work out here at the pad. A couple of big items that are on deck for the SLS rocket. One of the big visual things that you'll see in the next few days are the erection of some scaffolding, some additional platforms for accessing the rocket's core stage as well as the upper stage in order to allow teams to assess the flight termination system. And assuming that this can be validated here at the pad, which is a capability that NASA added in between the launches of Artemis 1 and Artemis 2. And that will be an important milestone box checked to be able to fly this rocket no earlier than March 6th. If for whatever reason NASA is unable to launch during the March period, the plan would be for the rocket to roll back to the VAB, and NASA would be foregoing an April window and would target the next launch period, which begins April 30th. But that's still a ways ahead, and agency leadership are confident or fairly confident that they can get things in motion and be able to fly during the March period. But as I'm sure they would say if they were on the mic right now, they will fly when they're ready and when they deem that it is safe and that the hardware is speaking to them in a way that everyone is comfortable with. So you can always head over to our 24/7 live stream, Artemis Live, and check on views of this rocket. And you might just catch a glimpse of when the closeout crew is going to be heading back to the pad and do one more closeout demonstration to get another practice run in the RF environment out at the launch site. Bringing things back here to the upcoming flight of the Falcon 9. I want to thank the more than 500 of you who are watching us live today. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking the like button and sharing the stream. It's a easy, quick, and very helpful way to support the channel. We also are very grateful to the ongoing support from our wonderful channel member community here. So thanks to folks like Master Dad Bane, of course, the aforementioned Cumulus Granatus. I'm Lita. And Greg Smith we've got this morning, and a number of others will pop in throughout the course of the coverage. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop.spaceflightnow.com, access to member-only videos here on YouTube, access to our members-only Discord server, and of course the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from here in Florida in 4K. With a number of fueling milestones already complete by SpaceX, still a number out left in front of them for the launch of their Falcon 9 rocket. Let's go ahead and talk about where we are right now in the count with 20 minutes remaining. At around T-minus 38 minutes was when the SpaceX launch director made the call on the start of prop load. With that go given, tanking started at the 35-minute mark with the loading of RP-1, a rocket-grade kerosene on board the Falcon 9's first and second stages, and liquid oxygen on board the rocket's booster. Half an hour before liftoff, SpaceX started to load cryogenic helium onto the pressure vessels for the Falcon 9's first stage, and did the same beginning at the T-minus 26-minute mark for the second stage. The helium is important because it's used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. T-minus 23 minutes is when second stage RP-1 loading should have wrapped up. And at T-minus 20 minutes and 50 seconds, where we are right now in the count, is the strong back chill down. Had we eyes on the Falcon 9 rocket at this point in the countdown, as we will later on tonight, we would be seeing the so-called big vent event lasting roughly 4 minutes in duration, setting things up for the loading of liquid oxygen on board the rocket's upper stage at T-minus 16 minutes. 7 minutes before takeoff, the first stage engine chill begins. This is when SpaceX flows a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps That helps to protect those engines from thermal shock and damage during startup. 6 minutes before takeoff, the first stage kerosene tank should be full. At T-minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the retraction of the strongback away from the vehicle, otherwise known as the transporter erector. We'll see first the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings open up, and then that large truss structure will recline about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket. And here at Vandenberg, it stays in that position up to and through liftoff. 3 minutes before that point of departure, the first stage liquid oxygen tank should be full. Same will be true on the second stage LOX tank about a minute after that. At this point in the count, the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers, and the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. The SpaceX launch director will then verify that they are, in fact, go for launch at T-minus 45 seconds. The engine ignition command is given at T-minus 3 seconds, and if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite as expected, the command will be given for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 rocket for a T0 liftoff. Once again, coming up at the time you see here on your screen, 1:04 a.m. Pacific, 4:04 Eastern, 9:04 UTC for those around the world. Just under 17 minutes remaining on the clock. The big vent set to wrap up in the next 20 seconds. The first stage booster that is flying today has the tail number of 1063. It is one of the most flown boosters by SpaceX. This will be its 31st flight. Sorry, still quite early in the morning here. Just caught that we hadn't updated the slide to reflect that Beat 1077 had launched for 26th time and broke that tie with Beat 1078. So we'll have a two-way tie for second place once again after a good liftoff and landing of this first stage booster. As you can see in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, T-minus 15 minutes, 15 seconds, which means upper stage liquid oxygen load is currently underway. Time now, T-minus 13 minutes, 46 seconds and counting. Not much to talk about when it comes to the weather. It actually looks pretty darn good out at Vandenberg. Weather has been fairly crummy out here at Vandenberg and in central to southern California. Got some family in the southern part of the state myself, and they've been talking about how lousy the weather has been. The Vandenberg launch of a Firefly Alpha rocket, the return to flight mission for that company, was at one point looking at February 18th for no earlier than launch date. And they did announce on their social media that the reason that they punted to no earlier than next week on the 27th, I believe, they pointed to uh, poor weather conditions as a driving factor for that. So, may have also been a contributing factor as to why this mission got pushed off to the right a couple of times. This morning's launch of a Falcon 9 rocket will be the 603rd time that SpaceX flies its workhorse vehicle. So let's go ahead and talk about the Falcon 9 rocket as we're getting ready to see this next one take flight. The Falcon 9 rocket stands at a height of 70 meters or 229 feet, and has a diameter of 3.66 meters or 12 feet. Most of that is made up by the Falcon 9's first stage. Again, this booster flying today is B-1063, making its 31st flight. While it is not the most flown booster by SpaceX, it is the oldest booster that is still currently in rotation, having made its debut back on November 21st of 2020. At the base of any Falcon 9 first stage are 9 Merlin engines, which burn rocket-grade kerosene and liquid oxygen, and together produce 1.7 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. And the Falcon 9 is flying, as we see it most often, in a reusable configuration. It also has those black carbon fiber landing legs that are used to land on sometimes a landing zone back on land, but today it'll be a drone ship recovery. Above the first stage is the inner stage, a composite structure consisting of an aluminum honeycomb core surrounded by carbon fiber. In the image on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see the deployable hypersonic grid fins. These are titanium winglets that provide stability and steering for the Falcon 9 as it comes back through the atmosphere, tail first like a big old dart heading towards the drone ship. At the top of the inner stage are mechanical latches that attach to the vehicle's second stage. And at first stage main engine cutoff, high pressure helium is used to release those latches, and 4 pneumatic pushers ensure a clean separation. Also, the second stage engine nozzle is housed safely inside the interstage adapter until the point of stage separation. Speaking of the second stage, the upper stage of the Falcon 9 powered by a single modified Merlin engine called a Merlin vacuum engine or an MVAC engine. It's equipped with a large nozzle optimized for burns in the vacuum of space, hence its given name. It produces more than 220,500 pounds of thrust, and it will be fired twice to place the 25 Starlink satellites today into their intended orbit. Following the release of the Starlink satellites, there will be one final burn, a deorbit burn, designed to drive the upper stage back into the atmosphere, where it will burn up and eliminate the risk of creating unnecessary space debris on this mission. Finally, at the top of the Falcon 9 stack are the payload fairings that currently encapsulate the Starlink satellites. The fairings are made up of a carbon composite material and stand at 13.1 meters or 43 feet in height and are 5.2 meters or 17.1 feet in diameter. The fairing halves will be recovered a little bit further downrange from where the first stage lands on the drone ship. They gently splash down under the support of steerable parachutes. Just about at the top of the hour here, 7 minutes and change remaining on the clock. Taking a look at our live chat, want to thank the more than 1,000 of you who are watching along with us live today. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking the like button and sharing the stream, allowing more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage today. As we're getting ready to see the departure of this Falcon 9 rocket, which is currently undergoing the engine chill sequence for the Falcon 9's first stage. Second stage RP-1 loading should be wrapping up momentarily. Let's talk a bit about where this Falcon 9 is going to be flying once it does leave the pad here at Space Launch Complex 4 East at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. After liftoff, the Falcon 9 rocket will fly on a southerly, slightly southwesterly trajectory with the first stage booster 1063 targeting a landing on the drone ship called Of Course I Still Love You, positioned in the Pacific Ocean. Booster touchdown is expected a little bit more than 8 minutes after liftoff. If successful, this will be the 179th booster landing on this particular vessel and the 471st drone ship landing for SpaceX. As we mentioned, SpaceX also wants to recover the payload fairings that are currently encapsulating the Starlink satellites. These will splash down in the water a little bit further downrange from where the booster lands on the drone ship. They'll be brought on board a recovery vessel like the one on your screen, then brought through the port of Long Beach and onto SpaceX facilities where they will be refurbished and turned around for future missions.
Tanks are pressing for the start of Stromback retract.
And as you just heard, we've got good visuals, good audio coming in from SpaceX now.
Stromback retract.
A very clear night here at Vandenberg. Always a welcome sight. As you just heard, the strong back retraction sequence is now underway. Momentarily, actually right now, you see the clamp arms beneath the payload fairings open up, and the truss structure, the transporter erector, will recline about 13 degrees away from the vehicle. As we see the reclining process continuing, I want to thank a couple folks in the live chat. Thanks to Lita for the $5 super chat, who says, missed the last few. Glad to be back. I will and team. Glad to have you back, Lita. And Ancient One with a $10 super chat, who says, thanks for always being here for the launch of Spaceflight now. Well, you're quite welcome. Glad you're able to join us. Thanks for the support.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
Good call on stage 1 LOX load wrapping up. We should hear a similar call regarding second stage LOX load in the next 30 seconds. Just under 2 minutes now.
Stage 2, LOX load is complete.
And with that call, the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. Should be seeing some additional venting here. You can see it just peeking through the bottom of the screen. Those are the ground gas closeouts.
Ground gas closeouts.
This is venting out of the oxygen from the feed lines at the pad. Coming into the automated startup sequence, beginning at T-minus 1 minute.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And with that, we're awaiting the SpaceX launch director to confirm that they are in fact go for launch.
LD is go for launch.
And with that, we're going to step back on our commentary and join you once again on the other side of liftoff.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 15 seconds. T-minus 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition, and liftoff. Go SpaceX, go Starlink.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
M1D chamber pressures are nominal.
And a good liftoff of the Falcon 9
Power
rocket
telemetry nominal.
from Vandenberg. Confirmation of a nominal flight
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
so far. Traveling faster than the speed of sound now. 1 minute into this mission. Coming up on max Q, the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle.
Max Q.
Now through max Q, the Merlin engines will throttle back up as teams prepare to thermally condition the Merlin vacuum engine on the rocket's upper stage. Should hear a call for MVAC chill.
MVAC chill.
There's that good call out. SpaceX is coming up on a few events in fairly rapid succession now. We'll see first stage main engine cutoff, or MECO, at around T plus 2 minutes and 24 seconds into flight. That'll be followed by stage separation and then the ignition of the Merlin vacuum engine. The payload fairings will jettison just about at 3 minutes into this mission.
Nominal trajectory.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC startup.
Good calls, good visuals on those events. You can see the hypersonic grid fins deploying on the Falcon 9 first stage booster as the lights from California fade from view.
Fairing separation confirmed.
Call for fairing separation, and I think you could just barely make out one of those fairing halves fly by the engine nozzle on the Falcon 9's second stage. Again, those fairing halves will splash down in the waters of the Pacific Ocean, further downrange from where the booster is set to land on the drone ship. They will be recovered and refurbished, used again for a future flight. Coming up on 4 minutes into the mission, the next big milestone will be the 3-engine entry burn, helping to slow the first stage booster 1063 down as it starts to make its way towards the drone ship called Of Course I Still Love You. (1063) appearing to reach its apogee at 113 kilometers in altitude, starting to make its descent towards the drone ship now. Five minutes into flight, the entry burn is just about 1 minute away.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
Stage 1 entry burn startup. Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
Both vehicles continue to follow a nominal trajectory.
Good completion for the entry burn and a nominal trajectory call. Coming up next will be the single engine landing burn, taking the booster down to the drone ship. Of course, I still love you. The landing burn set to begin less than 1 minute from now.
Stage 1 transonic.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing leg deployed. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And a good landing for B-1063, recovering for a 31st time.
INVAC shutdown.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And with a good orbit insertion call, the upper stage of the Falcon 9 will now coast until T plus 53 minutes and 16 seconds. There will be a 1-second burn on that engine to circularize its orbit. And the Starlink satellites will be jettisoned at T plus 1 hour, 2 minutes, and 8 seconds post liftoff. And with a good liftoff and landing of the first stage booster and confirmation of satellite deployment forthcoming from SpaceX, let's go ahead and talk about the mission stats next. This was the 31st flight for booster 1063 in the SpaceX fleet, the 603rd Falcon 9 rocket launch to date. This was also the company's 21st Falcon 9 rocket launch of the year so far. 537th Falcon booster reflight, or the launch of a booster that has flown at least once. This was the company's 165th orbital launch within the last 365 days, the 181st from Pad 4 East for SpaceX, and the 249th overall orbital launch from this pad as well. Here's a bar chart representation of where the Falcon family of rockets stand. Moving on to some recovery stats. This was the 179th good landing on the drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, marking the 471st drone ship landing for SpaceX and the 574th booster landing overall for the company. 575th overall landing of an orbital class rocket to date. Finally, with some industry stats, this was the 11th orbital flight from California, the 22nd from U.S. soil, the 24th from a U.S. rocket company, and the 38th orbital launch around the world. There have been 3 mishaps so far this year. Here's where the pie chart currently stands. As a reminder, SpaceX does have another Falcon 9 rocket set to fly later tonight. This one taking off from here in Florida over at Space Launch Complex 40. Time of departure is currently just under 17 hours away from now. Window for the Starlink 104 mission opens at 9:04 p.m. Eastern. Of course, we'll keep tabs on that and let you know about any further updates to that T0. You can head on over to our launch schedule page on the website, spaceflightnow.com, for the latest timing of that mission. And with that, we're going to go ahead and call it a morning for now. Again, we'll be back with coverage of the Starlink 104 mission beginning about an hour before liftoff. As a reminder, you can always head on over to check out what's going on with the progress towards flight for the Artemis 2 mission over at our 24/7 live stream called simply Artemis Live. I want to thank Channel Member Cumulus Granatus for helping to answer folks' questions in the chat today, to our editor, Stephen Young, running the technical operations of the broadcast. Most importantly, though, thanks to you for wherever you've been watching from, whether you were there in California or elsewhere around the world. We certainly appreciate your time and attention and look forward to having you join us again very soon. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others. And we will see you next time, folks. And until then, bye-bye.